said, how would you want to play it? And I said, well, like a sort of spirit trapped. So we went shopping for the costume, and he bought me this white boiler suit. And he said, do you like it? And I said, no. And he said, fine, that's it. He wouldn't like his costume.
What he always started on all his movies, he'd say, well, we're going to do it, all the men will be wearing dinner jackets. And then I pointed out to him that we're going to have a problem because the paintings show quite clearly that the people who are in front of the artists being painted are not wearing dinner jackets. They're wearing 16th century costume. So then there was a kind of you know. And we decided that we'd do Italy of the mind, really, Italy of the memory. So we've been down to Italy several times already, in fact, to have a look around, get ideas and so on. And you come back with memories of Italy, like everybody does, you know. And you remember certain textures and light and things like that. Very exciting stuff. And you cut out all the rest, you know, the stuff you don't really want to remember. And then you remember the bicycle thieves and all those sort of wonderful films. So we decided that what we'd do is to do an Italy of the memory up to the bicycle thieves. And no later, because we decided after that Italy becomes rather too sort of communal and inter-European and less Italian.
There was a question and answer session after the film Wittgenstein. And someone asked him a question about the costumes, and he was off. He was quite happy to talk about shopping for costumes. You know, he'd be as enthusiastic about talking about a feather boa as he would the Tractatus.
Derek's first ideas were very, very glamorous. I mean, we were going to have sort of great thrones of crusted with jewels and gilding and all sorts of stuff all over the place. And then we realized, you know, we can't afford all that. And I said, well, we could do it all on wheels so that we could make all these different spaces and I asked him if, you know, I said, can we do an abstract movie, please? Can we actually go abstract? Because I saw, well, that's a way to do it, but also I've always wanted to do abstract movie design, and it's not allowed. I mean, producers do not allow it. And Derek said yes, to my joy. So I went for this thing, and we had these 16-foot high blocks on wheels. And we had no windows, no doors, no lighting sconces, no staircases, just a couple of ramps, an outside wall, and I think it was 5 huge 16-foot high blocks, which we trundled around, but it meant that we could do anything we wanted because the bedroom just put a bed in it. There it was. Once Ian, the lighting cameraman, had got the hang of what we were trying to do, and it was, you know, it was hardly conventional. He could light anywhere he wanted. He could light to mood rather than to, oh, there's a window over there, we've got to have light from it. He could put the windows wherever he liked, and he just sort of brought the source, you know, off camera.
One thing I got from Aria was there's a shot where the camera, where I got a big wide shot of this bay, and the camera zooms in and goes onto the onto a less wide shot of the people on the beach. And when it's projected, you really see the Super 8 grain.
The floor was a really, really rough concrete floor, and it had to look like the Vatican or a great palace, and we couldn't lay beautiful floors over. We didn't have any money, so I just flooded it. Because I thought, well, you know, what do you see in your mind's eye? You see shiny reflections. So that's what we did, and the poor actors had to sit with their feet in the water. But it looked great.
In the garden, I wanted to use... I like the tungsten in daylight, so you get this very warm light, like you get when, like very early in the morning you get it, or at sunset you sometimes have it, where you've got this very warm golden light, and then if you can get it just a little bit brighter than the background, get it a bit brighter than the sky even, then you can make the sky there darker. So that's, and I think that's kind of, certainly for the garden, that was kind of what I was trying to get those dark blue skies and then the gold.
We go to the cinema quite often. So and it didn't matter what the film was, we seemed to go. But the first film that actually he mentions quite a lot is Wizard of Oz.
It made a very, very big impact on him, and I think continued to. It's there really throughout his life. I mean, it's a film that he watched a lot. He came back to time and time again. He talked about, and its sense of her. I mean, it's the whole idea of Dorothy travelling as she does over the rainbow to this magical, colourful place. You have a lot of echoes in Derek's life of that, I think, because he created an over-the-rainbow place to live in very often. I mean, when he was living in the warehouses along the Thames in the 70s, and he created this kind of wonderful, vivid, colourful milieu for himself and his friends to be in.
I remember when we found that cottage, we went down, his father had died and left him some money, and he and I went down to shoot in a bluebell wood. In fact, a section of there's a scene in the garden, which we shot that day. And he said, let's keep going. I knew that there was a bluebell wood where I used to go to school in Kent. And he said, do you know anywhere where there's a bluebell wood? And I said, I remember that And we went down, and of course it was a building site. And then we went on a little further down into Kent, and we found a bluebell wood, and we shot. And then he said, let's keep going. Let's go down to Dungeness. I want to go down. He had a friend who had a house down there. And he had a mind to find a cottage there. And then we found this cottage, Prospect Cottage. And it had a for sale sign, and we went and knocked on the door, and this really nice lady let us in, and it was very organised and orderly and sort of pink. And he decided there and then to have it, and made it into the TARDIS, the kind of Uber TARDIS, really, and the garden, of course.
I think he's making a garden where nobody else really would think to make a garden is a huge part of him, to take, but somewhere he did feel quite, I mean, he did seek out bleak and transitional places on the edge and isolated places, and he felt somewhere comfortable there. And he would then transform. He would then set about transforming them.
His films are about life, let's face it, and I'm sure that life was much more important to him than celluloid, and he lived a very full life outside celluloid.
It was incredible. I mean, you know, he taught us all so much about everything, life, music, art, eating, anything, you know. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous.
I think he loved helping people. He loved helping people. And if anybody walked around his garden down in Dungeness, again, the teapot would come in, have a cup of tea.
My grandmother always used to say something which actually applies to Derek as well. She always used to say, oh, nothing matters. And that springs to my mind about Derek. Just nothing matters. Which means, of course, everything matters. But nothing matters so much that you're not going to actually have a cup of tea.
Tilda called him a genius, which I think is probably about right.
He had an extraordinary charisma.
He had the most highly developed visual imagination I've ever come across.
He explored new issues in new creative ways. I think we can say that he was a true pioneer.
There hasn't been another filmmaker like him since.
The British film industry needs more St. Derek's, male and female.